Thank you everyone for coming. Again, thank you for your patience, especially the US folks with the time zone in Palestine. So my name's Tan. Thank you for joining us for the latest Kumi Now online meeting. I think we have less guests than usual because also Sabir recently hosted the Black Faith Leaders Conference, and they're also hosting a press conference right now. But I think they're recording this. So if you are interested in looking at the Black Faith Leaders Conference and see what they're saying, I believe that session will be recorded, so you can also go to Fasna and play that back later as well. But today for Kumi, we'll be talking about Bedouin rights, and we're joined today by Wissam Salah, who will be speaking about Bedouin rights. He comes from the Bedouin Without Borders organization based in Palestine. So the first part of our meeting will be dedicated to Wissam, but please stay around after he leaves, as we will dedicate the rest of the hour into turning our knowledge into action as we engage in advocacy. So before we start, I just want to remind everyone that this will be recorded, so please make sure to mute your mics. If you have a question for Wissam during his presentation, please put that in the chat, or you can raise your hand after he finishes his presentation during the Q&A session. And so that's just the rules, just a reminder of the rules. But I want to introduce Wissam before he begins. Wissam, he is the founder of Bedouins Without Borders. He's an author and an activist, and he's also a devoted Bedouin with a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance. Wissam founded Bedouins Without Borders in 2015 as an initiative led by Bedouins in Palestine to advocate for Bedouin rights, culture, and heritage throughout the entire region. So Wissam, welcome, and we're excited to hear a little bit more about your story and the Bedouin narrative in the region, and and Bedouins Without Borders. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak about Bedouins in Palestine and Bedouins Without Borders. Like you said, it's an initiative that started in 2015. Myself and a few of Bedouin activists started this initiative. In 2015, we noticed that there were no Bedouin organizations in Palestine. So, we saw a lot of organizations working with Bedouins, but or within Bedouin communities, but not of Bedouin backgrounds, or they lacked the knowledge of the culture, the spread out, the communities, the gatherings, and so on. So since we come from Bedouin backgrounds, we thought there was a need. And we did a meeting in 2017, a forum in 2017, that we managed to get 18 major tribes, the Palestinian tribes, under one roof, out of 21 major tribes in Palestine. And we sat down, and that's where that's how the organization built its programs and its initiatives, and it was our first huge brainstorming, you could say, session with all the Bedouins from different areas. Of course, in our mandate, we decided not to limit Bedouins Without Borders to West Bank Bedouins, so we extended it to Bedouins in Israel or Bedouins in Gaza, and the extension to the region, since some of the tribes will coexist in different countries. Anyway, within the years, a lot of programs happened, a lot of initiatives happened, and before the recent war on Gaza, we had three major departments or programs active. One was focusing on development based on desert tourism. and we started an oasis in the desert, and we started routes and training guides and so on to build like a Jordanian Wadi Rum experience, but in the West Bank. And we had before the war a very strong Bedouin women initiative called Bedouin Women Workstations. There were last year we had 12 sites joining. Around 42 women were part of this initiative. It's based, of course, also on financial support and development for Bedouin women, and we worked also on recording the heritage and culture of the Bedouin communities across the region or across the land, basically in Palestine and in Israel. We started collecting something about monuments and artifacts that Bedouins believe in, and whatever beliefs they had in. And then the war in Gaza happened. And with the war in Gaza, we shifted a little bit of our programs. We were not allowed to reach the oasis because it was an Area B. Area B is considered a natural reserve, but with the settler violence escalating, we did not want to endanger people. So part of our desert tourism just stopped. Also connecting women from different areas was very hard. Documentation, we did something online, so we started doing something online. But still, we're trying to develop. We did an advocacy film after the war, so we collected some research and some data. So I will share the link to that video. I like for you to watch and share. So Bedouins in Palestine. Palestine, historical Palestine, has three cultural components. Urban folk or city folk, farming culture, and Bedouin culture. After 1948, a lot of focus took place on the farming culture, and that kind of took the image of Palestinians all into farming, okay? And we did not notice a lot of writing and a lot of data collection when it came to Bedouins or to the urban culture or the city culture, okay? Years went through, and all the focus was just on the farming culture, the Palestinian farming culture. And then the other two parts kind of just were omitted or not paid attention to, neglected, okay? So Bedouins in Palestine, there's around, like I said, 21 major tribes before 1948. They amount for 20% of the population, 18 to 20% of the population of Palestine. Our latest statistics show that West Bank has around 420,000 Bedouins. Gaza has around 680,000 Bedouins. And Naqab has about 400,000 Bedouins, 390,000 Bedouins. And an exile, we're talking about roughly about a million and some million, I think 100. Okay. So about 18 to 20% of the total Palestinian population are Bedouin descent They come from Bedouin culture. Bedouins live on the eastern part of Palestine. It's a desert, so all the desert from Naqab all the way to the borders of Syria and Lebanon. The eastern part is all a desert. We're talking about 61% of the total area of historical Palestine is a desert. It's Bedouin land, basically. Many of these Bedouin tribes lived there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay, strong ties with the Sinai Peninsula. When you talk about Naqab, you will see a strong tie with the tribes in Sinai. When you talk about tribes in the West Bank, you'll see very strong ties with the Bedouins in Jordan and in the Sahel Huran Syria part. Okay, they're very connected, and there's like a tribal kinship going back to them. Tribes in Palestine come from two major. If you talk about history, they come from two major ancestry. It's either a Yemeni background or a Qaisi, which it's a Saudi background. So Saudi now, but before it used to be called Qais. Okay, so Bedouins here come from either Yemeni ancestry or that goes back to Yemen, obviously, and or Qais that goes back to Najd and Hijaz, which is in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia right now. Our tribe, for example, I'm talking about our tribe, it's called Ta'abra tribe, has been in this land for about 1,200 years. Okay. Moving back and forth. So, Bedouins move back and forth. They have the tribal lands. So they're not nomadic in like I think Wikipedia says that the Bedouin culture is nomadic culture. Bedouin culture is not a nomadic culture. Bedouin culture is a culture. So it's a shepherding culture. So they move, but they move within their territories or territories that they're allowed to move in. Okay, so Bedouin tribes have this common law that all Bedouins share grazing areas or water, food, and so on. There's some codes of ethics. There's some codes that all Bedouins share that allows an easy movement within other tribal lands. Okay. Bedouins in Palestine mainly depended on raising sheep, actually goats, and then sheep came later on. We usually only raise goats and camels because they can tolerate the terrain and they're indigenous to this environment. But after, for the past, I would say 80 years or so on, it was financially more rewarding to raise sheep because of the weight gaining and because of the market and so on. So a lot of Bedouins switched from goats to sheep, which kind of also affected the way of life because sheep's don't tolerate rough terrain, mountains, and so on. They need more care, and they're better to be confined, in a small area, not a vast area. So changing the animal, which was, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, changing the source of income, the animal that they use for source of income also affected how they move within the seasons. In the past 10 years, for example, Bedouins that reside in Naqab in Israel, who also carry an Israeli citizenship or considered Israeli citizens, they 10 years, 12 years ago, they passed a law prohibiting the raising of goats. It's called the black goat law. Black goat law is Bedouins can, or nobody can raise goats unless they have a permit, and of course nobody gets a permit. But this is they, and if they catch you raising goats, they will take them, they will confiscate them, the authorities, claiming that goats are they're not. They're not good with their environment. They're not. They're bad for the environment. I guess they eat trees and so on. Same law also passed for camels. So they used the same law 2 years later, and they said you cannot also raise camels unless you have a permit from the state back then. There's only one camel farm that has a license in Naqab. So a lot of tribes in Naqab pushed their camels towards the West Bank. So now we have them in the desert here in the West Bank, most of the camels. Uh, and I can read the messages. I think somebody's writing something. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry. Okay, questions, but here, could you please? Okay. Okay, now I'll the phrasing indigenous. I like to shed light on this because this is a touchy subject. It depends how you define indigenous. Okay, we are part of this land. Okay, we are part of the Palestinian culture as a whole. So we have a diverse culture that has components of farmers, Bedouins, or like I said, city. We are not an isolated group of the rest of the culture. So we are, in that sense, we are not indigenous. Now we're talking about historical Palestine. In Israel, it's a different story. Okay, some Bedouin tribes, and we had long discussions with them. A few uh, uh, individuals, uh, and I think there's an organization called Arab Al Jaharin, I think, organization, which is an activist that supported the Bedouins, decided to take this claim of indigenous-ship to the UN Council, Security Council, I think 8 or 9 years ago. Anyway, without consulting or without this further discussions with the rest of the population, we feared this. We feared this because, first of all, we are the original residents of this land, so we cannot be claimed a minority in some sense or an indigenous group of people. Okay, if that is true, then all the Palestinians are indigenous, are also an indigenous group of people. Okay. Yes, we have a distinguished culture of this land, not the same as the rest of the components of the society, but that does not make us an indigenous group. Okay. This is my opinion. It's still in a debate. We talked with a lot of international law consultants and experts, and there's pros and cons of this. So it's still it's a further discussion. We still, as an organization, don't use this term. Okay, we don't use an indigenous phrasing to Bedouins when we address Bedouins in historical Palestine. Okay, just like I like to say this. I'm going to read another question. Sorry, just give me a minute. Okay, and why and if there are Bedouins in Israeli military? Yes. Okay. So now in Israel, so you understand, in the 80s, in 1980s, okay, in 1980s, Israel had this order passed through the Knesset, saying that anybody wants to join to make the joining the army a compulsory service, any citizenship, any township that wanted to be part of the IDF service, they can sign and get legalized. So listen to me carefully. You heard before, I'm sure you heard now, if you're an activist, or if you follow the Bedouin communities, especially in the Cub, you hear the term of unrecognized villages. Okay, you will hear this term a lot, unrecognized villages. Okay, so Israel said in the 1988 and 1989 that it will recognize villages that will join that will make the service in the army compulsory. Okay. A few ships joined this Israeli initiative back then. Mainly none in Naqab, by the way, not even one in Naqab. Mainly in the Bedouin communities in the northern part of Palestine, close to Tiberias Lake. Okay, a few Durzi communities and 4 or 5 Bedouin communities did sign and agree to be part of the IDF compulsory service or joining the service. Okay, so when we talk about Bedouins in the army, yes, there are Bedouins in the army from these villages that in 1988 and 1989 did sign to get recognized back then. Okay, and they got recognized upon signing this, agreeing to serve in the Israeli army. Okay, now in Naqab, they did not sign, so they stayed unrecognized. They did not recognize them. Okay, but a few of the people through the rewarding system of joining the army, and you're in the army, you get loans, you get scholarships, you get financial support. Some people will following the need of support might join the army, and we counted in 2022. We did a research on this, and we found that from Naqab we accounted for 182 individuals serving in the IDF army from Naqab. Okay, which has a population of 400,000, almost 390,000. While in the northern part, okay, we accounted for 3,800 members of IDF that from the villages in the north, the ones I told about, 3,800 were serving in the Israeli in the IDF and the Israeli forces. Okay. So, well, actually, the percentage is very high in the north, okay, but the population is very low in the north. So you're talking about all the Bedouins in the Tiberias Lake area, around 15,000, all of them. But 3,800 will are serving now in the IDF army, while in Naqab 390,000, but only 182 people are serving. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's not like, yes, there are Bedouins. There's a lot of focus on that, and the reason why we're focusing on that is because we're trying to kind of stereotype Bedouins. Some people, or maybe whoever is doing this, is trying to make like a stereotyping that Bedouins are serving, with Bedouins are okay with what's happening with the occupation and so on. Okay, um, like I said, it's not as, yes, they are serving, but you need to know the numbers and the details and why they're serving. Hope that answered the question. The next question is, sheep mentioned in the Bible. So in time of Jesus, were there farming folk rather than Bedouin? Both. They were both. So they were both, and the culture was very close. So it depends what farming area. You remember, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Okay, Bethlehem is not a green area. Okay, especially the eastern slopes of Bethlehem. That's a desert. Okay, so but Bethlehem, Beit Jala, Bethlehem, and Beit Sahur residents, they're farmers. They're not Bedouins. Okay, yet their neighbors are Bedouins. Okay, when you go east of Nativity Church and go east of Bethlehem, farmers live in areas similar to where the Bedouins live in the desert. So it's not as green, it's not as grassy as it's supposed to be. Okay, they carry on the customs and culture of Bedouins. Okay, so they are very similar. I mean, and Bedouins that are close to them might raise sheep instead of goats. Okay, they're not further down east. When you go east, it's all goats. Closer to the city of Bethlehem, even some Bedouins that live close to the Nativity Church might raise sheep because the farming culture around the Nativity Church, they're mainly farmers. Okay, the early Christians were farmers. Okay, so they raised sheep, and Bedouins around them, because of this, of course, affected by the culture, will also might raise sheep. And I'm not an expert in the Bible, but I will say even the phrasing of sheep and goat. Now I know the story says sheep, but maybe in the translation we have to read the Aramis language and understand if there's a difference between sheep and goat in that language. I'm not sure. It might be the same wording for both. Okay, in ancient languages. I'm not sure, so I cannot really um, uh, give an answer. But like I said, Bethlehem has both, has farmers and has Bedouins. They're living very close to each other. Okay, around the Nativity, and then going east, you hit Bedouin land. So going 2 or 3 kilometers east of the Nativity Church, then it's all a desert from there all the way to the Dead Sea. Okay. I hope that answered. About goats, do Israelis authorities consider them not clean for them? They're saying they eat. No, it's not that religious. They're saying that because they eat trees, they climb trees and they eat trees. To answer this, I'm not sure if you heard about the Brother initiative. Um about 6 years ago. It's called the Brother Initiative. This was to build highways through the Bedouin communities in Naqab. The first stage was to plant trees. So what they did is they planted trees all around the villages. So they made walls of trees around the villages. Okay. Now goats are famous for climbing, so they will climb anything. They claimed back then that these trees they planted that the goats will eat them, and then they passed this law not to allow the goats to eat the trees. Okay, so they said they're not environmental friendly to whatever they wanted to do as planting trees in the desert. They wanted to plant trees in the desert. Basically, that's what they did. I'm sorry, I'm reading the questions and answering. Okay.
Yeah, some of the I think might not be relevant to the topic. So if anyone has questions relevant to the topic, put it in the chat. One thing I wanted to ask you, Wissam, though, is
Yes.
you did mention the relationship that, Bedouin tribes have throughout, not just Palestine, Israel, but also in Jordan and Egypt. And I'm curious about how
Yes.
that relationship has either changed or it's been harder in terms of movement due to borders or different policies. So I'm just curious in terms of like how Bedouins are navigating borders, for example, or things like that in terms of those types of issues and how they generally like maintain the relationship despite that.
It's of course it's harder. It's I mean I have our tribe. We have almost 400,000 members of the tribe in Jordan. Okay, that they're not allowed to come here. So if there's a wedding or there's a funeral, we have to cross the borders, and it's not an easy thing. In Sinai, also, we have connections there, but because of the huge borders between Sinai, Egypt, and Israel, and it's huge. Sometimes we can get away by, crossing the border with our jeeps and attending the weddings and coming back without crossing, checkpoints. Sometimes we can avoid them, but not the Jordanian part. It's very hard because it's very protected, not like Sinai. Uh, it's very hard. I tell you, it's very hard. Our mother tribe, we were invited to an like a reunion with the mother tribe 3 4 years ago, and there was an invitation for around 1,000 people from this area, and only two were allowed to go. That they managed to get through because the Israeli borders did not allow them to cross. Okay, again, Bedouins, they're not very good with laws and with governments. Okay, we're not the best citizens, and when you consider, when you look at, we're more an anarchist than just like an obeying citizen. Okay, we're not we're, because the way we live, and we live in the desert, and we have our tribal system, we have our elders, so we have our own systems in place. We really don't. If we have a problem, we solve our own problems through our systems. Okay, so we don't go through the courts or to the police, or we don't use them. Okay, it's everything is done in house. We have tribal law, tribal systems, elders that will solve any problem, no matter what the problem is. It's done. It's solved in house. Okay, not saying that it's perfect, and maybe uh, sometimes the regular law is better, or courts, but it managed to keep a sustainable way of life through thousands of years. So it's of course has some things to be working with, to work with, and to fix, but it's a system that proved to maintain our way of life and our culture, our connection with other tribes, all the problems solved. So there's like an internal peace within the Bedouin communities because of this very strong tribal system that's in place. It's still till now is in place. So uh, I'll tell you this: even in Palestine, even if you're not a Bedouin and you face a problem, you would rather use the Bedouin tribal system than going to just a regular court. So we have a lot of uh, people from neighbors or surrounding areas. When they have a problem, instead of going to courts, regular courts, they would come to the Bedouin elders, to our tribes, to get to help to solve to get judgment through our tribal system, not through the civil courts that in the place. So that's even another reason why the local governments don't like us. Okay, it's like you have your own government in place that's set up and it's going, and it's functioning good, and you don't need them. Okay. Um, Also, this very very resilient way of life. You're not dependent on electricity or water, or yes, of course now we need this, but it's in our in the back of our culture and knowledge, is to be very dependent, not to need anything, okay, from anybody. So that's also it's not a good culture, or the likable culture, when you talk about civil systems and governments and so on. They don't like this because you don't need them. You can live away without them. You can live away without the systems that's in place. So and that's maybe one of the reasons why we were not under the spotlight for a long time, is because our culture is not that way. We don't like spotlights. Okay, uh, if we liked them, we would not live in the desert. We would live maybe close to the city. Okay, but we don't like them. We like this way of life, and to have this space around us. This is the way we are, I guess. Can I read more questions, or do you have anything else to say?
Uh,
Oh, the phone. Go
maybe
ahead.
some, uh, uh, there's one question someone asked about preserving culture. So are there any programs or efforts in terms of
Okay.
preserving culture?
We did we actually did collect some materials, and we started archiving, and we worked with the UNESCO back then, and with last year, and with the Minister of Antiquities here in Palestine, to start collecting. And there was a project, but it was put on hold, just like all the projects after the war. Everything was put on hold, so nothing is happening now because there's no funding for it. We did start, and we did some documentaries. We did some. We met with a lot of elders to collect testimonies and so on. We started collecting artifacts, but like I said, and actually we did a draft on a Bedouin museum. But like, all this was planned for 2025, 25, and 26, 27. I don't think now we're going to do this to the way the situation is in Palestine. I hope this thing gets over soon, the war. But if it doesn't, and I don't think it will, I don't think a lot of projects that we worked with for the past 3 years uh, will continue, because they depend on some kind of peace. Okay, some kind of like an order happening. Today there's no order. Like I said, we have an oasis, for example, in the desert, that we long-term leased a huge piece of land to build like a center, for a cultural center, and a tourism center to support Bedouin communities in the desert. uh, in January, the settlers just cut the road and cut the water lines, and there's danger going there now because of the settlers. There's a few settlements around it, and now we cannot go there. Okay, so a lot of even I'll tell you this happening. I got this informed about this 3 weeks ago. Even supporting, relief aid. Now it's all relief. All Most of the projects in Palestine are shifting towards relief because of the situation. Israel, informally, uh, said no relief for Bedouins. Okay, they want the desert empty, so they're saying 40% of Area C is a desert. Okay, when you talk about Area C, 80% of that is a desert. Is not saying no. You cannot. No funding for Area C. No funding for Bedouins. No relief for Bedouins. You have to show an address closer to the city to get some kind of relief. If you apply for feed for your goats or something, if you show an address that's not close to the city centers, you will not get relief. Okay. So I think now things are going to get tighter and tighter around the Bedouins. It gets worse and worse. And there's a problem when you live away from the city and you don't have communication, you don't have media around you, you don't have ways of taking, documenting violations and so on. There's a huge problem. We get information when things happen and finish, not when they're happening. We always get informed after the things happen, after things happen, we cannot do anything. I mean, there's very few things we can do, but just report it. We can just document what the statements are, but then the 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 problem happened already, and things are broken already. So, or the families were pushed away already. Uh, I don't know. It's not easy, but we need to keep on till things hopefully change. Should I continue on the questions, or should I, Tan, tell me what to do?
Yes, there's a few questions. I'm just trying to help you take, because some
Okay.
of them are comments and others are questions. So I was just trying to read out some of them to you.
How many Christian Palestinians? I have no idea, but not many. I can tell you, not many at all. Actually, very few, because it's how could I say this? Christians are not very welcome when you're Jewish. Okay, it's not. Yani, they might tolerate, and I noticed this when I was working with around, especially religious populations, Jewish populations. They can tolerate Muslim Bedouins a lot better than they can tolerate Christians. They don't like Christians. Okay, so I'm not sure why, and I'm not a religious person, and I don't know what the history behind that is. But yes, religious folk, for example, for some reason, I'm not sure. I don't know what it is, but they don't like Christians. Uh, Not, like I said, not many Bedouins and not many Christians, not many Arabs serve in the Israeli army. I think if at the best there's maybe 3%, 5% of the army are non Jewish. The rest are, you can say it's a mix of all religions or backgrounds, but it's not a huge percentage. So, but then the media is smart, okay? And we noticed, for example, that the Bedouin soldier is always put in front of the Palestinian community. So they will choose a checkpoint close to a Bedouin community, a Bedouin soldier there. Okay, for us to see that there's a Bedouin serving in the army. So they're always moving these soldiers, although there are few of them, but they will always put them in front of us, in front of the rest of the population. They're not serving, for example, in Tel Aviv. They will not serve in Tel Aviv or in settlements. They will not serve there. They will always serve at checkpoints in front of Palestinians. Okay, so they're always pushed towards the borders where there are Palestinians. Okay, so we see them a lot. I think they're trying to send messages that here, look, the army, they're serving, they're with us, and so on. So they're trying to send messages, and that's kind of, maybe that's where the confusion happened, and where your question is legit. I think it's yes, there are some, not many, not that you consider significant or even many. Sheep and goats are also mentioned in the bio. Okay, okay. Torah sacrifice goats, true. Recording culture, very important. Yes, we are working on that. We know it's very important. And if you go in our page, you'll see that there's a few attempts are happening. What kind of ID do Bedouins get in order to cross checkpoints? If you live in the West Bank, you have a Palestinian ID. If you live in Naqab, you have an Israeli ID. Depends where you live, you get an ID. What education system do they employ? It depends again where you live. In the West Bank, we have the authority. In Naqab, they have the Israeli educational system. Okay. Uh, there's a huge rate. I'll mention that now. Our study in 2083 showed that there's a huge drop rate within the Bedouin communities, because and the main reason is the people there don't believe in that they can make a living, or they can sustain a living, or the children can, through education. So there's a problem because with us, we like to stay within the tribe. Our culture, we feel safe within among the tribe members, okay, around our tribes. Our tribes live in remote areas, so mainly they live outside the cities. So we live in areas with no jobs. Okay, there's no job opportunities. When you talk about the desert, what kind of job would you get? So you have to move to the city to get a job. Okay, we don't like moving to the city, and this is where this is like the negative feelings happen towards education. Because yes, okay, well, I'll send my child to school, but then my child, okay, he gets a degree. Where would he work? He will be sent to work in Ramallah, for example, in the city in Ramallah, 200 kilometers away from me. I don't like this. I like my son to stay around me, for example. Okay, this is how the tribal system is. Okay, so there's always an issue. Not yes, some tribes some families are, overcoming this, and their sons and daughters are moving out, but it's not something desirable. Again, if I want, this is what we heard from a lot of Bedouins. I'll send my son to school, but can you guarantee him a living afterwards if he finishes school? Can you guarantee that he can make some income, or can he just, keep on living? And we keep telling them that it's not that way. You cannot connect making a living. I mean, you can go to school and not make a living. It's not that. But education is important. Your son has to get educated, whether he works with his degree or he stays as a shepherd. That doesn't matter. But he has to get a degree, because this is the knowledge, enlightenment for him. So this is important for your son to know, at least some basic knowledge, right, from reading and writing, and maybe a few words of languages or mathematics and so on. That your son needs this knowledge, this is to keep on living now. Even if he does not work with his degree, does not sustain, that's not important. What's important is that he gets sons and daughters, of course. I'm talking about what today. I'll talk about Bedouin females in a minute. Women, okay, I'll talk about them in a minute, because there's also like a stereotyping about them, or false information. But I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll Can I get back to the questions? Okay. Okay. Never said about Israeli plan to plant trees in this way. طيب, I got the impression saying a significant number of people from villages worked in hospitals. Yeah, of course. Please comment if this is correct, and if loss of work permits. Are you talking about like settlements? Are they working in settlements? This question, I got the impression a significant number of people from the villages worked in hospitals and schools. Are you talking about settlements, or are you talking about in the West Bank itself? Sorry, if you can clarify this, because I don't get it.
I don't know if
Do you work?
Mike, are you here?
Sidra. Yeah, yes, we work with Sidra. We did work with them, with Amal and Laqiya. Actually, our colleague Hind, she works with us. She's from Laqiya village. Sidra and Amal, they're very good, very hardworking women. All respect to them. And that's what the reason destruction of Bedouin communities in Israel. Okay. Can you tell us what the reason? Okay, you're talking about in Israel, so we're talking about in Naqab. Okay, I'll tell you about the Naqab. I'm sorry, I missed you. Where is Sam from? I'm from a Bedouin tribe called Ta'amra, east of Bethlehem. I am the director of Bedouins Without Borders. That's founder of the organization, one of the founders. So yes, can you tell us about the recent destruction of Bedouin communities in Israel? I'll tell you something. We're talking about in Israel, but this is not compared to what's happening in Gaza. The whole Gaza Strip is demolished, basically. Okay, so yes, there are villages that have been demolished and transferred and forced transfer, but we're not talking about them right now because what's happening in Gaza is way bigger than what's happening in the West Bank. Before the war on Gaza, yes, there's a huge thing happening. It's happening right now. It's not like it stopped. Okay, although what 3 4 months ago when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the U.S. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, tried to push on to stop settler violence and to say that to follow them and maybe to stop this and push the Israeli government to put a leash on the settlers, it did quiet down a little bit. Okay, so yes, they're holding back a little bit. I guess what the U.S. It has an influence on settlers for some reason, so they did stop. Okay, violence did lower a little bit in especially in Bedouin communities. Still, there's some danger because they are there, but maybe there's there. No, I am Palestinian. I am a Palestinian. I don't have an Israeli ID. Sorry, Israeli citizenship. Okay, so daily, there are families that are being forced transfers. There's shacks that are being demolished daily in the West Bank and Nakab, northern part of the Jordan Valley. Daily. There's an incidents happening, violations are happening, but they're so not compared to what's happening in Gaza. So we're not really focusing on them. Okay, Bedouin communities, like I said, in Gaza, there's almost 680,000 Bedouins. Okay, mainly live on the eastern part of Gaza. They are in the front lines of this war, basically. Even in Gaza, the whole eastern part of Gaza are their Bedouin communities. Okay, all the refugee camps mainly are Bedouin. In 1948, the British mandate declared that 90,000 Bedouins from Nakab alone refuged in Gaza. 90,000 moved to Gaza in 1948. So they're the fathers, the grandfathers of almost 680,000 people now, in Gaza. Almost to 25% of Gaza are they come from Bedouin backgrounds. Okay. Um, uh, like I said, in the West Bank, whether you're in the West Bank Bedouin village, you're under threat of being demolished or it's forced transfer. You don't have any rights of water or electricity, so we depend on solar power and grain wells, and sometimes we try to dig like hide a water line, but when they found out they will cut it. Okay, the same thing is happening in Naqab, so it's not different. If you are and live in an unrecognized village in Naqab, you will face the same things the West Bankers face. It's the same thing. If you're in a Bedouin village, whether in Naqab or in the West Bank, it's the same thing. They will demolish. They will force transfer. You're not allowed any services, no schools, no nothing, anything. Okay. Uh, Although this is considered Area C, and so supposedly it's part of the Palestinian Authority, but it's the same thing. If you're in unrecognized part of Laqiya, it's the same thing. If you're in Khashm al-Daraj in eastern slopes of Hebron, it's the same thing. Uh, s- they use. I'm sorry, I have to read. Thank you, Sam, for. Thank you. Okay, sure, you're welcome. No problem. Thank you. Some people say our Bedouins are pro-Israel. Uh, the Bedouins are Palestinians. They're even Bedouins in Israel are Palestinians. They come from the same background as Bedouins in the West Bank. Now, listen, we all try to live in peace. There's nobody wants war. Nobody. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you something because I hear this a lot, and I hear it sometimes from Palestinians. Okay, they're saying we don't want to die, we want to live. Okay, nobody wants to die. We all want to live. And this is true. This is a true statement that all of us don't want to die, don't prefer dying, and we want to live. But I'll add something to this to make to make this statement correct. You have to add nobody wants to die, and we all want to live in dignity. So you need to add dignity to it. Otherwise, it's not just living. Okay, we all can live. There are a lot of people are living. Okay, it's not the matter of just living. Animals are living, and things are living. I mean, there's a lot of people are living, but you have to live in dignity. Otherwise, it's not worth living. Okay, and this is where whether you're a Palestinian in the West Bank or you're a Bedouin or a Palestinian in general, or you're an Israeli holder, an Israeli citizen that come from Arab background. The question is the Bedouin Naqab that holds an Israeli ID, does he live in dignity? If he lives in dignity, I think he can protect this way of living or be part of this system that respects him and allows him to live in dignity with his dignity. But if this system is taking away the dignity from him and just making sure that he just lives, of course he will not belong to it, or he will not be part of it. It doesn't matter where you live. If you're in the West Bank or in Naqab or in Israel or in the North or in Nazareth, or it doesn't matter. It's how does the Israeli government treat you? Do they respect you? Do they treat you in dignity? Do they respect your rights? Do you live in an honorable way? Yes, of course. It doesn't matter. I'm not. I don't know if this answers it, but like I said, nobody wants to die, but we all want to live. We all want to live in dignity. Um, one more.
I think we're running short on time, so I do want to make sure you answer one last question that would be for the benefit of the entire group, and that's, our audience. Well, first of all, it was really great to hear you talk, because I think a lot of people don't really, there's a lot of misinformation, about Bedouin narratives and Bedouin rights. So you really, I think in terms of your story and your narrative, it was really important for us to hear you today. And the
Sure,
audience,
sure.
a lot of us are international based. So one of the things I think, before you leave, and the one last thing we want to ask you is if there's ways for the audience to support your work on the ground and the current work that you're doing right now.
First, visit our website, learn about us, I guess, as an organization. If you have connections to organizations here that are working in the West Bank, we can collaborate and maybe work and maybe help us connect to them and maybe build, support our programs through them. So any advocacy, connection, and networking is appreciated. Um, Sharing what you think is important. Also, you can visit our Facebook page. Has a lot of videos of our work, and like I said, the film I think we published in March. A lot of things happened through March, but it was very important because it gives you like a fast glimpse on the Bedouins in the entirety of historical Palestine, which is important. Okay, and it shows what's happening. So I really, I'll share the link. I don't know if you or you can. I'll share the link to you, I guess, through email, and please share it to everyone. And like I said, networking with anybody you know here, any organizations, connecting us to them would help a lot. Okay. I don't know if situation here is going to get any better soon, but we have to be hopeful. And like I always say, we cannot make it heaven, but we can make it heaven to someone. Maybe not to everybody, but maybe to someone. Okay, we can change someone's life. Not everyone. I hope we try to everyone, but it's not easy. So we work with individuals. But if I can finish with Bedouin women, tribal system honors women a lot. Okay, so if a Bedouin woman gets by any chance violated with anyone insulted or any violations that happen to a woman, a Bedouin woman, is basically in the Bedouin culture a declaration of war. Okay, war happens right away. People will start shooting each other right away. Okay, you cannot. They're protected by tribal law. Women in the Bedouin culture, they're very protected by law. So, for example, killing a man uh, uh, is 1/4 of insulting a woman. So if you insult a woman, it's like killing 4 men. This is the tribal law. Okay, you cannot insult a woman. Now, of course, it's a male-dominated culture, just like the rest of the Arab culture. But the woman has, I think, a very strong space within the tribe. There's a lot of sharing of decision making because Bedouin women usually tend to the house, shepherd the goats. Especially the past years, most of the household income was from women because men had to work outside the house, so they had to move to make some money. They will work away from the house, leaving the women and children in the desert or in the house. And this woman has to sustain, to make sure there's food on the table for her kids, sustain some kind of economy, household economy, without the husband that will probably go for a month or two and come back because he cannot go back and forth because of the permits and he has to sleep in the work and he cannot come back home. Okay, so we discovered this. We know this, and we did our initiatives to work with Bedouin women in 2017, the first workstation. Okay, and since then we've been expanding the stations, and they're basically we're trying to help women create highly marketable goods through materials that are found within their environment. So whatever is around them, we try to turn it out to become something that's highly marketable, highly wanted in the market. Okay, this is the idea. At the same time, allowing groups of women to build the network within themselves. So we're connecting Bedouin women from different tribal communities through this workstation initiative to kind of build a network for them. Okay, and hopefully we were hoping that this year we'll have the first like a women council, Bedouin or tribal council, but women only. I think we need to wait till the war finishes before we do this. Um, Yes, actually, I'll tell you something strange now. When you asked about education, women get chances of education more than males. Females get a chance to go to school higher than males, okay? Because males need to go to work, okay, to secure an income. So they need to, when they're too young, when they're 18, 17, a young guy will go to a settlement or go to work in the market, whatever things they can do as labor to secure some kind of income. And because of the culture because the culture protects the women, they're not allowed to do the same work, okay? So what Bedouin families are doing is they're pushing their daughters to get some kind to get educated, to hopefully get a job through their degree, okay? So you will find that a lot of families, the wife will hold a university degree while the husband does not hold any kind of degree, okay? Maybe he did not finish school even, okay? This is strange, okay, but this is how the Bedouin community is. So it favors, in some sense, it favors educating females. It favors. Well, I feel sorry for the males on that side because I wanted the young boys and kids to also get an education, but for this is how this is done, okay? Because they feel that the education system is a good place is a safe place for a girl, but for a man, he needs to make income, so he needs to make money. So let's go to the market. When you're 15, 16, go work, do something, okay? They will not allow their a daughter to do this, but they will allow her to continue her education and hopefully gain some income when she graduates, okay? So, like I said, a lot of families, Bedouin families, very noticeable that even if people that who visited Palestine will notice that women, for example, will speak English because they went to school, so they learned. So a lot of women will speak English while the males cannot do that, okay, because they did not get educated. Um, I thank you again for giving me this chance. I'm sure there's a lot of questions I did not answer. I'm sorry, forgive me, but uh, anytime anybody has a question, just connect directly to me or and maybe a different session, future session. I'm available always for you guys. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, I did not border you. I tried to keep things short as much as I could. Thank you for this chance.
Thank you. I think it was very informative. You touched on so many different issues. I think our audience learned a lot. I did link everyone in the chat the website for Bedouins Without Borders. I believe you can donate as well to your organization. So if anyone is interested in donating and supporting the work, you can visit their website. And then Sabil also hosts delegations monthly, so we'll be in touch with some in terms of maybe we can
Sure.
you in the itinerary and bring international groups to learn more about your organization. But thank you so much. I'm sure the
Thank
audience
you.
also appreciates your work. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the chance.
Right, so as Wissam leaves, we have a few minutes left, a little over time, but we do have a few actions, and I'll just put the website, and I'll stay on a few more minutes just so people can access actions that you can do this week. And there's also another action that wasn't updated on the site, so I'll just put this down as well so that people can sign the letters. So give me a second and I can copy that also to the chat. Okay, here you go. So there's those two links, the kuminow.com action that we have our actions weekly, and then also this action network if you haven't signed it already, which is a letter to the U.S. administration calling for an arms embargo. So yeah, if you can sign this, if there's other actions that you can put in the next few minutes as people leave so that they can use to sign or do actions, please put that in the chat for everyone to see. But other than that, I really appreciate everyone being here this week. And next week we'll be back to our regular scheduled time in the US. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.